Welcome back to our Blue Z Water channel. I'm privileged to have with me today Ed Wunder. He is an expert in hydrogen, and your title, what's your title specifically in hydrogen? Ed?
Well, a certified hydrogen professional with the Molecular Hydrogen Institute.
Great. So the Molecular Hydrogen Institute is what's his name runs that? Who's the gentleman?
Right, Tyler LeBaron.
Tyler, right. So that's probably, if you're going to go look for research, that's where you're going to find most of your information. I recently was talking with Ed, and he gave me a lot of insights into this therapy, things that I did not know, and I changed my approach. I have had a Brown's gas machine for about 3 years, and I actually changed my approach and feel a lot better doing the therapy. So I wanted to go through some questions with Ed today and share this wisdom so that, number one, anybody doing hydrogen therapy, anybody who owns a Brown's gas machine, or anybody looking can get on the right track. And, consider, people have their opinions. There's very few people really promoting Brown's gas. I'm not going to name names, but some people have, proffered information that I think is worthy of questioning, and you have to go by your own experience. So today we'll get Ed's expertise. So welcome to our channel.
Andrew, glad to be here.
And so let's start off. Yeah, just if you want to briefly describe your background and how you got into this.
So my parents were highly into health hacking. I would say more towards the hacking end of it back in the 1970s. And so I inherited that desire to learn more about health and conditions and things like that. Even though I'm a trained engineer by profession, I've always had this passion for optimization of health. And several years ago, probably early 2000 teens, stumbled across, actually I've been hearing about it before that time, the hydrogen, and specifically the Brown's gas and how it could be helpful for health. But I never had really an opportunity because of work or time schedules or family to really look into it in depth. So when the opportunity came, I finally jumped in, and the changes that I saw manifest in myself. And again, I'm coming in at this from an optimization of health. So I don't have severe health conditions. I've always had really great health. I can't complain about my health, or I haven't come into the health space because of debilitating conditions that I've had to overcome. I know there's a lot of people out there who have, and I respect them, and they've done a great job. I've just come in from a different angle. And when I discovered this, the first effects that I found were within 10 minutes of exposure to the gas. And it was a knee that was a little wonky. I actually had an open generator, and I let the gas flow upward around my knee, and I kind of cupped my hands on either side of the knee to trap the gas in there. And when I went up the stairs after a few minutes of that, after about 10 minutes of that, my knee felt different. I'm like, okay, is this placebo effect or is this real? So I get upstairs and I'm in the kitchen. My wife's making dinner, and I kind of took a step from that knee in one direction, and I got a pop. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I hope that's a good pop. And I took a step in the other direction, moving the knee in the opposite 180 opposite direction, pushing off the knee, and I got two pops, and all of a sudden the knee felt like it was getting more blood flow and opening up the joint. Now this is only after 10 minutes of gas exposure, so on the joint, and the knee was fine after that. The wonkiness completely went away. And so that was my first introduction to the power of this gas. And so when I was able to, I hunted down some better versions of the machine that I had originally purchased, and found that there were some deficiencies with those, and went ahead and designed my own machine, and brought that forward.
Okay, so let's start on the therapeutic side, if somebody's watching this video from anew and hasn't seen any of my other videos, I'll mention a few things, and let me just start off as a practitioner. I have a chart of key technologies, and one of the things I've looked for, and this has to do not with body work adjusting, although this therapy would help with adjustments, is therapies that get deep into the cell, permeable. So I actually consider this therapy to be the most cell permeable therapy. I have, for instance, PEMF. It gets to every cell. It's more like a magnetic pump. It will go through the body, but this is a gas that actually permeates deep, deep, deep into the cell. And it can go through, and this is very important to me, if you have a very compromised liver, let's say, and there's a lot of compromise in the tissue of the cells, it still can permeate through that compromised structure and help the liver heal. So its permeability to me is number one. Number two, what's the action of well, we're going to talk about hydrogen, the main gas. The key action is twofold as I see it. One is anti-inflammatory. It's a massive anti-inflammatory therapy. Two, it's homeostasis. What does that mean? It gives the cell what it needs to try to heal itself. So it's getting deep into the cell, meaning it's permeable, and now the cell has a chance to figure out what to do to try to create balance in the body, homeostasis. It uses this gas as a primary food. Now, hydrogen is the primary molecule of the universe. So now, pragmatically, I just want to say that, you know, these are the key actions. There are other therapies that are very self-permeable that have other actions. And when you balance them all together, you get the best results. Anybody who's, let's say, buying hydrogen, let's say, as a massive instant antimicrobial, you know, you have a serious infection and you're looking to knock something out in 12 hours, I don't consider that's the forte of hydrogen. Long-term, it'll help the immune system, but it's cellular repair, anti-inflammatory, and balances, by the way, some other key therapies that I use. We're not going to get into those other therapies right now. So anything you'd like to add on that?
Yeah, the oxidation stress, it balances oxidation stress in the body as well without perturbing homeostasis, as you said. It balances everything, it puts everything into balance, or attempts to. So it moves the body towards balance. It never moves it towards unbalanced, a situation where you would have issues where something's working better than, and something is performing poorly. They're all going to move upward at the same time. And sometimes that can take people off balance. It can catch them off guard because they are expecting one or another thing to happen when it's moving everything. So it goes in at the cellular level, at the organ level, and at the systemic level, and moves everything towards center. And that's the beauty of it. It never removes the oxidation stress that's necessary. That's a cell signaling molecule. Oxidation radicals are cell signaling molecules. And so that's important. That's also important for feedback for all kinds of other issues in the body. Same thing with inflammation. If you don't have the necessary inflammation that's remaining because of an injury or some other situation, healing will not occur. So that's another thing that hydrogen never removes, the essential inflammation or the essential oxidation stress. And then, of course, the optimization of the immune system is another wonderful thing that happens. Yeah.
Now, there is one last thing I want to personally bring up, which is overlooked. I have a lot of videos dealing with emotional trauma, spirituality, and I did a lot of body work, acupuncture. I'm very well aware of cranial sacral, so I'm very well aware of what we call the subtle energy body. And so in terms of well-being, in terms of the general, if somebody is stressed out, this therapy, I call it Manna. It's like a mothering energy. It's very calming to the entire energy body. And that's just so important because, you know, we use the term inflammation in Ayurvedic medicine, and they use the term fire And then they talk about balancing the elements in Ayurvedic, if you're excessive water, excessive fire. But to make it simple, it contributes to a sense of well-being. If you're stressed out, you lie down for an hour and do this therapy, you're going to feel a calmness. Unless, I'm not saying absolutely, but it will contribute to putting you into peace and calmness. And frankly, it's, again, I consider this the mother element. So why wouldn't you feel a kind of mothering, soothing aspect to this therapy? So that's just my one little addition. Let's go over the applications of this therapy. There's essentially 3 ways to do this. One is breathing, the other is direct application to an area of the body, and the third way is drinking the water. Is that correct?
That is correct. The 3 modalities, if you will, are the infused water. I think that's the one that's been studied the most. So they found all kinds of great stuff happening in the body with that. Regulation of hormones, regulating blood sugar. I know diabetics have a wonderful experience with drinking the water and their blood sugar. One recently was in the 150s, and they're down after one night of drinking the water and waking up the next day, they were at 112 for the morning glucose. So I don't really know the scale there, but that was significant. He was extremely overjoyed with that change and in just one exposure to the infused water.
How much water do you recommend someone drink per day?
Well, the therapeutic dose is the minimum therapeutic dose that they found to be effective is 0.5, so 1/2 part per million or milligrams per liter in 1 liter of water consumed. So a lot of people find I can consume 1 liter of water without even trying first thing in the morning when I'm thirsty, and generally throughout the day too. If I'm exercising heavily, that's no problem to get it down. There's other people who would have a hard time getting that down. So you can do that over the course of the day. And since the gas goes out of the water at intervals of about 2-hour half-life, if you don't cap it and if it's not in a metal container, you can actually reinfuse that before you drink it again later in the day. So that's not an issue. But yeah, there's a lot of studies are with the water and the effects on the body. There's also studies with inhalation as another modality, and inhalation gives you a tremendous amount of gas. Yes, the cannula, the nasal cannula, tremendous amount of gas compared to the water, but it hits the body in a different way. So when the water hits the stomach, the hydrogen is absorbed in the stomach lining, and that causes a change in the body that is not there. For one instance, for an instance there, or an example there would be the people with diabetes. I got a call from a customer who was not able to move his blood sugar, and he was getting worried. His doctor was losing control. They were at the top of their meds and they couldn't go any higher. And I just said, so you've got the machine, why are you having a problem? Are you drinking the water? He says, no, I don't have time for that. I just do the inhalation. He was a sales guy. He was really busy. I said, all right, please add water throughout your day, drinking the infused water. Told him how to infuse it. And he, within 6 days, his blood sugar was completely under control. So the inhalation is powerful. The inhalation is a lot more hydrogen, but it hits the body differently. So just be aware that there are differences there. And now the third modality would be the direct application, where you would actually put the gas in either in a bag, like you would with ozone for ozone bagging. You can do that with the hydrogen gas. That's a very powerful modality. You can directly apply it under joints, since hydrogen rises at 50 miles an hour when it's unencumbered. You want to put something in between the gas comes out and where you want the gas to go through. So if it's an elbow joint, you would want to put it underneath the elbow so that the elbow can benefit from the gas rising upward through the joint. And that would go with any joint or any part of the body that you can. Yes, that's an example of a application cup. So
by the way, it's like a collapsible funnel.
Yeah, it's a collapsible funnel basically.
Yeah.
And that what that'll do is it'll allow the gas to be used and you can put it under wrists, under hands. It's very, very, very powerful to do that. That would be, so I tell people when I'm talking to them on the phone that inhalation is kind of like the fire department coming out and misting. You've got a fire going, and sometimes what they'll do is they'll put a very fine mist into the air to kind of take down, to raise the humidity in the air and remove some of whatever the mechanism is, but they do use like a spray, a very fine spray. But then when they want to treat an actual flame or get rid of that flame, they'll use a stream of water. And so the application cup is like a stream, and the inhalation is kind of like a mist throughout the whole body. It goes throughout the whole body, but it's not, if you have an acute condition, much more powerful to do the application, a direct application right to that area. And that's kind of like analogous to a fireman's hose being put on full blast onto a fire to get it under control.
So yes, when I met Ed, that was one key insight that really was significant to me. So let's say you had a liver problem or a heart problem. You would want to lie down and put the applicator behind your heart and flood the heart with hydrogen. Now, that doesn't mean don't breathe it or don't drink, but if you want to get maximum saturation for a local region. Now, if it's a limb, you could bag it, but heart, you can't bag the heart.
No, so you can actually reach right through the skin and touch the internal organs with this technology. Absolutely.
Right, it goes right now. Keep in mind, hydrogen, so it permeates everything. That's going to go back to the beginning. It's the most permeable therapy. I have several that are quite impressive. But in terms of actually this gas just going everywhere in the body, it goes through everything. So if you have a heart issue, you lie down. Like I have somebody who's benefited from this therapy. His child was in the hospital every month with asthma, and also has the doctors want to do what's called an ablation on the heart because she can get an electrical firing causing a tachycardia, and that hasn't happened since she's been doing this therapy. And but what I didn't know, she's never put the applicator behind the heart directly to treat the heart. And anybody with a heart issue or a liver issue or a brain issue, now with the funnel, it spreads out as it goes through. If it's coming out like this, it's probably going something like this. I mean, we don't know exactly what the spread is, but let's say you are treating your liver, move it around, lower liver, mid liver, upper liver, you can move it around as you go. But it will spread out. Obviously, the area directly under the funnel will get the most concentration, will get a diffusion effect. But direct application is going to get you way more, probably
in that one localized area. Yes.
Right.
And it is trying to go straight up. So it will get swept away by blood or other fluids that are moving in the body as well. So just understand that if you're applying the gas to a specific area, it's going to go everywhere in your body. There's no way to keep it sequestered into one area. Right. It will distribute because the blood vessels are everywhere. It will get into the blood. It will get swept away, but it will be much more concentrated in that one area.
Okay. So that's the 3 applications: drinking, breathing, direct application. And keep in mind, once again, that point, if it's direct application, the hydrogen is going straight up. So if you're treating the heart, don't go from the top down. It'll go up into the air and you'll get nothing. I want to address the elephant in the room. This was another very big point when I talked to Ed, that I changed my ways. It was like I was doing the therapy for the first time in some ways. I changed how I was doing it at night. I changed how I was doing it in the day. And just basically the machine I had has a variable output. And I was very scared about this word, explosion. This is hydrogen, it's explosive gas. You cannot turn it up very high or you can explode. You can explode. I mean, it was pounded into my head. Now, the other side of the coin is, wait a minute, if I turn this up, I'm going to get way more benefit, way more therapy. And when I did turn it up, oh my God, especially at night, I just noticed I felt like I wasn't doing the therapy at night. I had to turn down for what I thought was an appropriate level. Then I turn it up, and oh my God, it was like I was doing the therapy for the first time. Every time I do it in the day. And I used to wake up in the morning and feel like I needed to do Brown's gas therapy in the morning. I felt very dry, very inflamed, and I couldn't understand what's going on. I'm breathing all night long. So let's discuss the elephant in the room. This is an explosive gas. And I want to be, again, juxtaposed. If after we discuss this, you're going to realize the benefit of the therapy is enormous if you turn it all the way up. Why would you reduce your therapeutic benefit? Of course, the fear has been put in people's minds. This is an explosive gas. So let's discuss the explosion issue.
I know this flies in the face of some people out there who are trying to scare people with the Hindenburg and everything else. And yes, the gas absolutely is explosive. You can actually create little mini explosions with the bubbles that come off the gas as you're infusing your water. And I have some customers that do that just to prove to themselves that there's still hydrogen in the water. Now that's a safe way to do it, but it is explosive in the right concentrations. So let's talk a little bit about what the right concentration is and why it's not such an issue. 78% of the atmosphere that we're breathing right now in your room and in my room across the globe, I'm sure it varies by a few percent with everything that goes on in the world, but it's nitrogen. Nitrogen has a quality about it where it actually disseminates the hydrogen very rapidly and dissipates it and pulls it apart so that the concentration, as soon as it gets into the atmospheric part of the room and not in the concentrated form, is inert and does not do an explosion or have any problems.
I just want to interrupt you for 1 second so the audience understands. The concentrated form would be coming out of the machine through the cannula. That's
directly, yes.
As soon as it leaves the cannula, it's in the atmospheric condition.
It's in the atmospheric conditions, absolutely.
Right. So at the end of this cannula here, you've got in your nose.
Yes.
As soon as it leaves here, it's no longer in here, it's concentrated.
I would say within 2 inches of the nasal cannula output port is where you're not going to, within 2 inches, it will be concentrated enough to have a flashback. It's called a flashback when it explodes back towards the generator.
Now,
and it's like,
let me ask you this real quick. Let's say you literally took a match, it's in your nose, and I took a match and I go like this, which would be very foolish. But
be very foolish.
Now, you're saying the flashback would still go back into the machine.
The flashback goes back into the machine. Yes. And I had a customer who was a smoker, and he's actually more than a customer. He's actually a tinkerer, and he souped up his machine quite a bit. And he also is a smoker, and he absentmindedly went to light his cigarette with a lighter, and he had a flashback. Now, there are some people out there who tell you that you're going to die, your lungs will explode, and you'll be dead. That is not what happened. For whatever reason, the Brown's gas quality also is to move backwards towards the concentrated and away. The other issue at hand is the concentration that's available in the lungs. Even at those rates of flow, the amount that's able to be inspired in a single breath is very little compared to the amount that when you take a breath in, it can be a couple liters of air going into your lungs. And when you're bringing in about a second, second and a half to breathe in, you're going to be pulling in about 10 to 16 milliliters of hydrogen of the mixed gas. And of that, 66%, sorry, is going to be hydrogen. So you're down to probably about 10 milliliters of hydrogen in a 2-liter container of gas, which is very little. So it's going to be very difficult for anything to explode in that environment, especially when mixed with the nitrogen. We've done experimentation, and there are safety features built in the case of a flashback, but it is very safe. We've not had any kinds of injuries. We've had no issues with any kind of ignitions. Under normal use, you have to actually try to actually get an ignition and put the flame right to the output of the gas port to actually get that. And within 3 inches of that gas port, even pointing straight up at an open flame, it's not going to ignite. So it's very,
let me just feedback one
very
thing
safe.
to the audience is very important. So number one, as you said, when you're breathing in, I mean, what's coming out, when it's the potential to create explosion, it has to be quite concentrated in the cannula. Then, if there was a flame, if you were foolish enough to light up a cigarette, it's going to follow the concentrated portion. It's going to go towards the concentration. What's coming into the lungs actually is minimal. So it's not going to follow the very diluted amount of hydrogen in the lungs.
The empirical,
literally go, you know, it wants to, essentially, it's going to go to the gas that's concentrated, go in that direction.
yeah, so that's the empirical evidence that we have so far. There's a few safety mechanisms that are in nature. We add a few safety mechanisms as well. And then, of course, there's the common sense warnings that we just say, you know, this is a combustible gas. Do not use an open flame. Do not use sparks or anything else in the presence of it.
Right, and in all my, I've never heard anybody actually, not just with the Brown's gas, there are machines, I know Dr. Circus has a website, a very $10,000 hydrogen machines, and they're putting out a lot of hydrogen. And I never have heard of somebody exploding or dying or being injured from the gas. And as I say, I mean, their machines are put out way, you know, they're very expensive. People are selling very high concentration hydrogen machines. So I really think this is what's most critical. This was put into my head so strongly that I believed it, and I was robbing myself of the benefit of the maximum output of the machine. Now let's get it next. So if you're turning a machine down, let's say if you have a variable machine, you're turning it down versus turning it full tilt. What would be the compromise turning down the output of the hydrogen?
You're not getting the concentration of gas that you need. You yourself said you weren't feeling things until you up the concentration level or the volume level. And it's true. I mean, there's so little that's circulating through the body. And if you have intense issues with inflammation, intense issues with oxidation stress, you're not going to hit it right. I talked with a woman one time who was using the machine about 2 to 3 hours a day, and that sounds like a lot for some people, but she had severe health conditions and severe health issues, and she was not seeing her inflammation go down. And I advised her to up the time on the machine because the concentration was fine. It's just she wasn't having enough time on the machine. So she was not amenable to that because she did not want to lose the benefits of it. There's a little mouse study out there where they put mice in a cage and then they put an enclosure around the cage and kept it there 24/7. And what happened was the mice initially responded extremely well, but then over time they lost their the benefits of the hydrogen, continuous hydrogen. So she did not want to do that. And I told her, it's like, look, 8 hours sleeping, you still have 16 hours when you're not exposed. That's intermittent exposure. It's not going to do anything bad. So she still didn't want to do it. Well, she called one day and said, I finally took your advice. Her pain and inflammation was off the charts the previous day. She slept through it all night. And she said 95% of the inflammation was gone and 100% of the pain was gone. Excruciating pain just in one overnight. So if you're talking about inflammation, you need to be talking about time, either on the cannula or direct application or what have you, whichever way you want to get it in you. You're going to need more of it. It's very powerful, but if the body doesn't get enough and it's fighting major battles, it's still going to need more horsepower to go forward.
Okay, well, 2 questions I want to ask. One is, what about some people would say if you got the machine cranked up all the way, you're blowing off most of it. You're not really, you take it in, you saturate, and then you just blow off most of the gas. And the other thing I would do, you brought up, I want to also question is there, let's say you're doing it all night long and do it half the day, is there a point where you should take, how many hours should you take a break if you're doing it a maximal amount of time? Well, let's go through the first question. What about the point that, you slough off, you get rid of most of the gas?
You're going to, but you're going to have less available if you lower your concentration level or your output level, the volume. You're going to have less available to get into the lungs and get into the bloodstream. It's just simple math at that point. So if you look at charts, and Andrew, I think I sent you a chart that showed you they put arterial probes and venal probes in 3 different animals, and they studied inhalation on those animals, and the amount of drop between the arterial side where it goes out into the body and the venal side, the veins where it comes back into towards the heart and lungs, was a significant drop. So even when you're saturated and trying to become saturated, that drop is going to be significant enough that if you lower your volume, you're going to be losing that advantage that you had when you were fully charged up. And it doesn't last in the body. It just does not. I think when they did studies with the liver can absorb extra hydrogen for a small period of time from drinking the water. But I don't think they've seen anything like that with the inhalation. So the inhalation is kind of a constant supplying the gas to the body. The body's constantly using it. And as I described to people, it's kind of like a soaker hose where your bloodstream, there's nothing in the blood to hold on to hydrogen. It dissolves. And so it's constantly coming out, slowly weeping out through all of your piping for your blood supply for the body. And there's no red blood cells that grab onto oxygen and take it like little UPS or FedEx trucks around the body and deliver it, and then grab the carbon dioxide and take that back to the lungs to be transmitted back, transmit the carbon dioxide out of the body and bring more fresh oxygen in. There's none of that mechanism with hydrogen. So you're looking at a very random process. You're looking at something that has to infuse into the blood and has no carrying mechanism to attach to other than the fluid itself. And so anytime you're going to diminish what's available in that situation, you're going to diminish the output of that. So diminish the input, you're going to diminish the output. Just simple.
And if anybody out there does own a variable output machine, all I can tell you is try cranking it up and don't see the difference.
Right.
And that's what I knew right away, especially at night. It was amazing. So I get most of my therapy actually at night now, and I'm actually getting therapy.
That's when a lot of people do it. Quite frankly, when they're busy during the day, they'll either put the cannula in at least the start of the night, and if they wake up to go to the bathroom, then they'll take the cannula out and stop the machine. Some people like to sleep all night with it. You asked about maximum per day. I've had people tell me that they've used it 54 hours straight for their son who is having severe issues with the care of their physician. It's probably an alternative physician. Because I don't think many physicians like this, because it's definitely going to affect their bottom line because it helps with so many conditions. But I've had other people with severe cancer, stage 4, using it 12 to 16 hours per day for months. I've had people using it 18 hours per day for a month at least to get back to their baseline of health that they used to have. And so it's intermittent. They're looking at that as very powerful. So intermittently hitting the body, pulsing it, if you will. That's very powerful. They're finding in studies. So I think what you need to do is you need to find out, how does your body react to hydrogen? And what do you think the best mechanism is for your body? The body will tell you in fairly good terms how you're feeling, how your energy levels are. It'll tell you how you should be using it. And when it's responding better, do more of that. If it's not responding as much, try something different.
Now, I do have some videos, and just real quick, my wife came back from Arizona. My daughter got COVID. she tested negative. Well, but the bottom line is I'm like paranoid a little bit, but well, we won't get into the COVID thing. I just want to be extra careful. So I do something called medical ozone therapy, but I have a video explaining that's oxidative stress therapy. That's fire therapy. That's radical oxygen therapy. It's you use a lightning strikes in a machine to make ozone. Ozone is oxidative stress therapy. That's why it works. So if you're somebody who isn't, if you're listening to this video and familiar with Chroma Life, the number one technology is ozone. And this therapy, if you do it on a consistent basis, I call it dampening the burn. It's like in New Mexico, they did a controlled burn several times and actually burned down Los Alamos. So much for good. I don't know who designs controlled burns, but anyhow, if it rains all night long and the forest is wet, and you go to light the flame, and you're going to get a much more controlled flame. And essentially, if you're doing ozone, this is a great balancing for if you do too much, you can do this therapy, drink the water, breathe the gas, and help with the oxidative stress. Number two, if you do it on a regular basis, when you can actually end up doing more ozone, higher dosing, get more therapeutic benefit because you're balancing. It's not like burning down a dry forest. You're moistening the forest before you hit the flame. So this is anybody who's looking at Promo Life's technologies. This is a yin yang thing. This will really help with ozone therapy.
There's plenty of research. There's a wonderful website out there called hydrogenstudies.com, and you can type in just about any word you want to search for, and it will show you if there's studies that are out there that hydrogen has helped with. One thing that's interesting, the Brown's gas has moved conditions where they say the hydrogen has not helped. I don't have those on the tip of my tongue right now, but we have discovered over the years that Brown's gas will actually, again, it's definitely different than just hydrogen. And when you put that into certain conditions, it's definitely moving the needle in a great way. When you look up that condition for hydrogen or the way that they studied it and the modality they use, sometimes they use saline water that's injected into the body, that's hydrogen infused saline water. Sometimes they'll use water, sometimes they'll use inhalation. But regardless of all that, the difference between hydrogen and Brown's gas is significant. And we have seen issues. So just because you see that nothing helped with the hydrogenstudies.com for your condition, there's a good chance, I would give it a try, because there's a good chance that the Brown's gas will move things in a different way from regular hydrogen that they tested with in the lab. Speaking of energy, they still don't know the mechanism of hydrogen in the body. And I've got some theories on what's going on. I think it's working. The whole medical industry seems to be chemistry based, and Western medicine seems to be chemistry based. Eastern medicine's more on the energy. What I'm kind of hinting at is the energetics in a cell, the cellular function. What they have found is that hydrogen peroxide, and this is a perfect example. Hydrogen peroxide is a cell signaling molecule. It's also involved in the immune system, but technically it's a free radical. If you take ascorbic acid, which most people call vitamin C, and it's not vitamin C, it's just the outer ring of a very complex molecule that Dr. Linus Pauling discovered. If you take that and you ingest that, you will cause interference and disbalance in the body. You'll unbalance the body's cellular functions. So much so that when they gave athletes in a study 10 to 20 grams of ascorbic acid, they measured their performance before the ingestion of that, and then they measured it at an interval after, when it was digested by the body. And there was a significant percentage drop in performance. Now, why would that be? Isn't vitamin C good for us? Yes, but it's indiscriminate. It's a chemical, and just if you were to put baking soda and vinegar on your counter and pour them together, you'd get a foamy mess, and that foamy mess would continue until one or the other is used up. Now, this is from a chemical standpoint. Now, if you look at it from the energetic standpoint, the hydrogen is looking for a process that is profitable for the body. And there's a technical term, I can't think of it right now, but basically, does this does this chemical process make sense right now from the standpoint of energy? When they put hydrogen into a perfectly balanced cell, there is hydrogen peroxide in that cell. Hydrogen goes right in through the cell membrane, goes right into everything in that cell and floods the cell. It does not touch and it does not scavenge the hydrogen peroxide. If you do the same thing with ascorbic acid, every single molecule of hydrogen peroxide will be scavenged and destroyed by that ascorbic acid chemical. So there's an energetic signature that hydrogen has, and this goes back to what you were discussing early on in our conversation, that energetic play with the body that hydrogen gives it. And there's something else there. It doesn't just simply work on a chemical basis, it works at an energetic level. And they still don't understand completely that energetic level. So I think that's why they're mystified still. This has been studied since 2007. They've known these effects since 2007. They still don't have an answer. I think they're looking in the wrong areas. And I don't know that they have the proper tools to detect the energetic signatures that we're talking about, because the energies are so subtle.
I will go back to my meditative point of view. Okay, let's not get religious, but it is the foundational molecule of all things. Mm-hmm. So it has a unifying intelligence, pure and simple. To me, that's how I innocently perceive it. This is an intelligent gas. It understands. If you believe in the one, this thing is coming from the one. It has the one in terms of this reality is that which can process all the bullshit and bring it to a best result. Right. So in a sense,
there's no other explanation. Why doesn't it? It's a free radical. Hydrogen joins with free radicals. The charges are right. The chemistry is right. Everything is right. And ascorbic acid will jump right in there and destroy that molecule. But hydrogen respects that.
You mentioned hydrogen peroxide. Somebody asked me recently. I've never been a fan of that therapy where you drink hydrogen peroxide.
I'm talking about the natural hydrogen peroxide that's occurring already in the body and in the cells and is part of the immune system. The body creates hydrogen peroxide. So
what about people who want to drink, consume hydrogen peroxide?
I've heard really great things. I've not really used that.
Let's say someone's out there and they're into hydrogen peroxide. Would this just substitute out for that therapy?
It depends if it's out of balance, right? So what happens is if processes in the cell are underperforming, they'll be raised up. If they're overperforming, they'll be suppressed. That's what hydrogen does. It balances everything out into a scale. If you want to put it into a scale, if it's out of balance, it will come back into balance. It will not slam it to the other way. And when there is disbalance in the cell or unbalanced functions, those will be corrected by the hydrogen. So if there's too much hydrogen peroxide in the cell and it's not ordered, it will be removed. It will react with it and remove it. And same thing, if there's inflammation being provided from the cell that's not necessary, it'll calm that cell down. The body has, I don't know if it's just a human condition or what, but the body has a tremendous propensity to overreact when it comes to inflammation. And when you calm that excess inflammation, that overreaction down, that's a lot of times where the pain goes away. And that's why ibuprofen, because it suppresses the inflammation response of the cells, which is why that works so well. But again, if you're just indiscriminately suppressing that, you're going to suppress the healing portion that the inflammation is spurring in the body. So hydrogen gives you the best of both worlds. It suppresses the excess and it leaves the essential so the body can still go towards a healing state.
Appreciate it. Like I said, Ed gave me some key pointers that I applied, and One, the notion of how to apply directly to an area, and that was very valuable. So keep that in mind. Anybody who's using the gas, let's say you're trying to treat an organ system, use that direct application. Two, crank it up, maximum output, more is better.
That was one thing Tyler LeBaron said early on. He's the director of the Molecular Hydrogen Institute. He said this, a lot of people claim about things more is better, but in this case, it seems like it actually is more is better. So, absolutely.
Right. And now just one last thing. I mean, if you initially start, there's can be an acclimation phase. I always say it's like the guy who's crawling through the desert and hasn't had any water for 3 days, and he gulps a bunch of water. You got to take sips at the beginning, but once you realize, I can drink, I'm back.
Yes.
Then you can up the therapy considerably. So maybe at the beginning, since the cells are so starving for this, do at the sip level. There's instructions on how to break in. Once you break in, you can work up to, long periods of time.
Yeah, the other thing to keep in mind is that the cells may not be working correctly all the way through your body. And as soon as they start working correctly, when they're exposed to hydrogen and get that cellular balance back, they're not going to want any kind of toxins in them. So it's usually very mild, but there can be a slight detox. And you can look up, I believe it's Herxheimer reaction or healing crisis or wellness syndrome. Any of those keywords, you can look them up and see what could be. But generally speaking, it's very rare for that to happen because hydrogen is so gentle. And you can use it in elderly people. We've had people over 90s. We've had people, newborns, using it. We've had dogs and cats using it, pre and post surgery.
Well, how do you do an animal?
The same thing with the application cup. Animals usually don't want to sit, but if they are sitting down or laying down, you can just slip it right underneath their haunches or another area under their body. It's going to go right through their fur, go right through their skin, right in their body. We've had several people tell us their dog was feeling great once they did that after post-surgery.
If you go in the
veterinary surgery.
If you're trying to get into the bloodstream, I guess go like more underbelly, the heart area.
Right. Yeah. So they were loving it. They had one customer that said that she was regretting giving her cats bubbled water, the infused water, because when she first went from tap water to not ozone water, but RO, reverse osmosis water, her cats wouldn't drink the normal tap water. Then when she went from reverse osmosis to reverse osmosis with infusion, then the cats wouldn't drink the infused water, or the reverse osmosis water, without it being infused. So animals can tell the difference. Animals can definitely tell the difference of what's going on with the infused Brown's gas water.
Now, this is another point. Thank you, because I always thought, oh my God, the animals can't do it because you can't get the cannula around their snout.
Oh no, just put that application cup right underneath their belly or their haunches, wherever they're not going to, just wait till they're asleep or laid down and relaxed and calm, and then just kind of lift them up gently, lift them up and then slide that underneath them and then let them come back and sit on top of it. And every person that I've told to do that to their animal or their pet has had tremendous results. Animals respond phenomenally. You can infuse the water and water your plants, and look out. Your plants will love, the plant cells and the human cells are extremely close together. Their hemoglobin is actually chlorophyll. Our hemoglobin is hemoglobin red blood cells, but the cellular structure is very similar and they react exactly the same as we do to oxidation stress, and they perform remarkably well with infused water poured on. So if you've got a plant that's suffering, or even a healthy plant, it'll definitely feel a lot by watering it with this water.
Okay, well, that's very good to know. See, there's another point I just learned. I can now not give up. I was giving up on treating my animals right under the.
Don't give up.
So I have an old dog. I just put her right near her heart area, probably go under the underbelly, and she's so
Yeah.
tiny it'll probably spread out quite effectively.
Yeah.
So maybe an hour if you can. I mean, she lies around all the time anyhow.
There you go. Anytime they're laying down, they're perfectly good for getting an application. Yes.
And if you want to sleep, if two people want to do it, you can get a splitter and split it. And if you want to run it to the bed, by the way. So I really appreciate it. You've been a wealth of information.
My pleasure.
We're going to post links below. Thank you so much for coming out and providing this excellent information.
My pleasure, Andrew. Thank you
And
for having me.
promoting one of the best therapies, alternative therapies on the planet.
It's my pleasure to bring this forward. This technology is too important for humanity right now.